podcast where we are going to be talking about a lot of different things centered around user experience in the Web3 space. And today we have some fantastic guests to help us kind of break down like the different ways in which people could hope to experience far more improved, almost like a 10x user experience on Web3 through chain abstraction. And to help us with that, we have our guests here today. We have Conor, of course, and Conor is from Enso Protocol. Hi, Conor. Good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. We have Jasper from SEDA. Hey,
Hello,
Jasper.
everybody. Thanks for hosting us.
Pleasure as always. And of course, we have Arjun from LI.FI. Hello, Arjun. Good to finally meet you in person.
Hey, yeah, nice to meet you as well. I'm very happy to be here.
Fantastic. So the way we'll do this, gents, is essentially we'll try and keep it extremely free flowing. I have a couple of questions for each and every one of you that I will like pointedly ask out. But if you guys post that person answering, if any of you want to jump in and kind of add on to that, add some unique sort of insight on top, please feel free. Just interrupt me and go ahead, no problem. Outside of that, of course, if you feel like asking some questions on top of whatever has been asked, feel free. And we'll just round up with a couple of common questions for everyone. So let's get started. As usual, I think we'll just start with some introductions. Conor, it'd be great if we start with you. If you can just tell the audience here what it is that you do, what is it that Enso does, then we take it from there.
Sure, happy to. So I'm Conor, one of the co-founders of Enso. I've been building full-time in the Ethereum ecosystem since 2016. Prior to starting Enso, I also helped build a fully regulated and licensed digital asset bank within Switzerland. You can envision Enso as a tool that enables developers to build products very quickly. Now, the narrative on top of this is called the intent engine. Intents enable developers to simply express what they want to obtain as an outcome, so they can simply focus on a product than building all of these integrations themselves. In the last year of launching this product, we've enabled over $12 billion to be settled on chain, with 35 plus projects using us in production. One is also in this call, Arjun from LI.FI, and many, many more. Looking forward to today.
Fantastic. Thanks, Conor. And also congratulations on the very imminent public sale that you guys are going to be doing. All the very best to that.
Coinless launch is already live, so check it out if you want to.
Fantastic. Jasper, why don't we go with you next?
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm Jasper. I'm the co-founder and CTO at SEDA. Before SEDA, I joined the crypto space full time in late 2017. Before that, I had a startup in data analytics. And my first sort of foray into crypto was as a independent researcher. Me and a few folks from around the world were working on Plasma. So it's like Ethereum scalability, pre-rollups. And we got a grant from the Ethereum Foundation, worked on that for a while, and eventually ended up meeting my co-founder at a conference. At SEDA, we're trying to build sort of like the standard for off-chain data interoperability, so allowing any rollup on any smart contract on any rollup to query any data. So think of it as like an omni oracle, I guess. Like, yeah.
Great. Well, I'm sure we'll talk more on that. Arjun, over to you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Arjun. I lead research at LI.FI. I've been in crypto for the last 4 years. And ever since I joined, I've been doing like research roles. I started working with a digital asset management fund in South Korea and like basically rating crypto assets. So I've been like used to the research flow of things. And then 3 years ago, I think all of us could see different blockchains popping up other than Ethereum. Like we saw Solana, we saw all the rollups that were launching. And I just had like a basic thesis that, okay, I'm a user of Solana, I'm a user of Ethereum, so there's definitely a need for different chains, right? And then I realized that, okay, there's this market for bridges. I reached out to Philip, and that's how I started working at LI.FI. Joined pretty early on, and then so LI.FI is an aggregation tool, and we aggregate some of the best liquidity sources in the market, and also work with teams like Enso to basically, provide the best rates for any sort of like swaps, bridging, and we do it across multiple chains. So we're live on all the EVM chains, Solana, and we recently also launched Bitcoin support.
Fantastic. Now, many people on my team are like big fans of what you guys have been doing, and we use Jumper a lot. So, congratulations on everything you guys have done so far. All right. So, I also just happened to notice there is a little badge on your wall behind you. So, I think I like you even more as a result of that.
I mean, that's pretty sad for the last 10 years, but like, I think I pledged my alliance pretty early on in life.
Good to see your commitment. Fantastic. All right. So why don't we start, right? So we obviously want to talk about chain abstraction in many contexts here. Obviously, all of you guys kind of, if you take like the cake framework as like some sort of basis for what the stack would look like for the future of chain abstraction, all three of you kind of sit at different, all four of us in fact probably sit at different levels or layers with some overlap. I think with that sort of context, it'd be great. I think we'll start with Conor. If you can just tell us, essentially this whole intent engine, right? What is it that what does it mean for a developer, and how does that impact the life of an end user? Because most of this happens behind the scenes, so it'd be great if we learn a bit more.
Great question. I mean, if you kind of look at the Web3 user experience as of today, it's very fundamentally broken for users and also developers. If users inherently know where they want to end up, whether that's in the DeFi protocol, whether that's a particular NFT project, they're needing to go to many different interfaces and do many different transactions to be able to get to that end destination. So an example of this, if you want to get to a beefy pool, that may require an Aura LP, that may require a Balancer LP, that may require 3 tokens, you're looking upwards of 10 plus transactions, including your approvals and 4 different interfaces. So this is kind of like a very simple use case of an intent, saying, I have token A and I want token B. Now with the Enso intent engine, it's more expressive, meaning you can say, I have A and I want B, C, and D. And B, C, and D could be a token, an NFT position, a DeFi position. It could be any arbitrary smart contract interaction. So the way that developers build applications as of today, they're needing to manually integrate every single smart contract that lives in every single blockchain framework. This doesn't make sense, right? Before you know it, you've raised a $4 million seed, you've spent a year and a half building these integrations, you launch, and you don't have any product market fit. You have no users because you've been focused primarily on these integrations than focusing on your product. And Enso, the intent engine, really just enables developers to focus on building the product. Instead of building these integrations, you offset all of that maintenance, all of that integration heavy work for every blockchain framework and every single smart contract just to Enso, saying, I want to obtain this outcome, I want to obtain this state, how can I do this from this position? And then we generate the call data and then give it back to kind of the users that are requesting this. Where we kind of sit within this chain abstraction era, so we've got direct developers using us, we also have other aggregators like LI.FI and so forth. We also have other interfaces. We also have DeFi protocols. So we're very agnostic. And I see intents fuel and create chain abstraction a reality. You can be at the top layer saying, our users want to interact with any chain, any smart contract. And a lot of the logic people have nowadays is this will just be offset to solvers. And it's like this God mode of these people will figure it all out. And it's not real, right? You need a collaborative system that anyone can contribute to, which is called Enso. And this can then fuel and solve all these different requests for interacting with many different blockchains.
Understood. So I think the part where you speak about like, who ends up using you and how how the end user ends up benefiting from like say a developer integrating you guys. I'm also curious to understand like upstream, like who are you guys integrating in order to make all of this work, or is it just all bespoke custom software?
So at the beginning, we integrated other aggregators just to test the product thesis. Now we have all our own routing, we have our own indexers, we have our own graphers. And the Enso engine you can envision as a network where you have 3 different network participants, an action provider, someone coming along and saying, here's how you interact with this protocol. So it's similar to like a subgraph on the graph, right? It's static information of how to interact with this protocol. The second network participant is a grapher that purely focuses on algos, taking the intent request and then routing across all of these different individual actions on the Enso network, generating call data, validators and simulate this, and then it's given back to the customer itself. So for now, well, at the beginning, it was more integrating others just to see if it worked, if it made sense, test the product hypothesis, did work. Now we purely just have full in-house. Now we're making what we have in-house, that anyone can start contributing to this. Anyone can start building on top of the Enso intent engine. Kind of our focus is going directly for developers, but again, we're offering something no one else is doing right now in the whole market. So we can see how other aggregators, other products like DeFi interfaces would use us, but we want to eventually get to direct developers.
Understood. Very interesting. Just to continue from there, Jasper, it would appear to me that a lot of Enso's data needs could actually be solved by your permissionless like Omni, Oracle.
Maybe. I think one of the main things here with Enso is that SEDA is also an intent-based protocol, which means that you end up with data being aggregated on the SEDA network, but that still needs to end up on the consumer chain and consumer applications and enter God mode solver systems such as Enso that actually facilitate this. So that is I think everyone in this call here loves Enso and Conor and what they're doing, because it saves you so much work, right? Like coming up with these solver options and models is just really, really difficult, and having frameworks and ways of thinking to think about this is really valuable. So I don't know, Conor, like do you need Oracle on within the intent engine to settle things? To some degree, I'm assuming you do. At least within the CA, sort of like the cake framework, you get this settlement layer, which is essentially very heavy on Oracle requirements, let's say.
That's a question, potentially. I think this is what I like the most about the cake framework, is that everyone can start collaborating, right? It's like some projects try and build like 10 parts of the stack, but the beauty of cake is, LI.FI, Enso, SEDA, Arcana, we can all start collaborating, right? And we can then focus on different parts of the stack. So the answer to you is probably, yeah. But please share SEDA.
Yeah. So I mean, within the cake framework for us, we're trying to build like this standard for sort of like data interoperability, right? So allowing any rollup to query any data, and this is very important once you enter chain abstraction, because there's all of these new rollups popping up. You want to have access to their data to settle the intents, right? So if there is an intent issue saying like, hey, I don't know, there's this new this rollup and they do perps, and I want to take a position on that rollup from whatever chain abstracted entry point the user comes into. A solver will take this action for the user, but then how does the solver get paid? I think that is sort of like the big question where within the settlement layers, like how do you pay out the solver what he's earned? How do you prove that they performed this action on the destination chain without getting the user, the end user involved, right? And for that, it's very important to have this sort of like permissionless Oracle layer that is a standard, that's the same everywhere. So you know that whatever layer they're interacting with, you can just deploy SEDA there yourself and access data without us having to get involved or our validators having to get involved. All you need is a solver willing to bridge the data back and forth.
Okay, interesting. So you're essentially wanting to do this great service to this and to everyone across the stack who wants to bring this data either on chain or just be able to kind of do it on the basis of on the basis of this data, be able to orchestrate things, whether it's settlements, whether it is reconciliation and things like that. But
exactly.
My question to you is, it'd be great if you could tell help our audience understand why should a protocol, a solver, anyone trust this data that basically the SEDA protocol spits out?
Yeah, it's a great question. So with SEDA, the way we have designed our sort of like how data is collected is you can write your own data feeds. So depending on the use case, the level of security or the level of trustlessness might differ, might be very variable, right? So you can select as a developer, you can select what sources you want to have queried. So you can add a ton of redundancy. You can add large levels of computation on top of that data as well to get to like more secure aggregates based on whatever volatility dampening or aggregation methodology you feel comfortable with. So and then it comes from it's provable that it comes from those data providers, right? So you say like I want it from data provider A, B, and C, and I want to take a median, like a very very basic one, and you collect all the signatures. And then you have the SEDA chain validators aggregate it, and then from there it's essentially bridgeable everywhere. Yeah, is that an answer to your question? So it's mostly programmable, like the security.
Okay, but also can you tell me if this is a service where I just go to you guys and say, hey, I need an endpoint for the price of ETH at any point in time. Here are some sources, and are you the only guys I have to talk to, or do I need to then further talk to all of those sources, or do you have like a set of sources?
Yeah, there's like a set of sources, and you can just start writing. Yeah, like you don't even need to talk to us at all. So it's like permissionless accessibility and permissionless feeds that you can spin up.
So essentially, instead of me going and perhaps trying to in today's day and age, like seduce a chain link to support some particular chain so I can get this data and then get ghosted and nothing happens. We can just come to you and permissionlessly just start using it to get accurate price feeds.
Yeah, that's the point, right? Like proving a business case to a centralized Oracle, or at least an Oracle that has centralized integration processes. It's hard. It's really, really difficult. You either need to raise 100 million from A16Z, or you need to pay them 7 to 8 figures. It's just, I mean, that's not what this space is about, right? So we are offering an alternative.
Fantastic. No, great to hear that, Jasper. Arjun, coming to you, in the context of like chain abstraction, you obviously have all of these new sort of intent-based bridges that are doing extremely well, fulfilling user needs very fast, very cheap. How do you kind of look at, like, contrast them with like the more traditional bridges, the Stargates of the world versus like an Across? And what's the future of like these sorts of bridges, that the more traditional sort of DeFi primitives that were bridges essentially?
I think so. Like, there's definitely a need for both, right? And it's probably better for the market that we have two strong bridges for kind of, leading both designs. Like we have for on-chain pools, we have Stargate. For intent-based bridges, we have Across. And then even in our data, we see that, okay, it's not 50-50 on all days, but in general, these two bridges are pretty competitive with each other, right? So both designs, I would say, is important. And as an aggregator, that's probably your best case scenario. Like you have two different designs competing with each other, and there's nothing to pick between them on most days, right? So I think in general, as a primitive, as a design choice, intents definitely have a lot of benefits, right? Like the speed is there for everyone to see. the cost in many cases is there for everyone to see, but then a Stargate has its own benefits, or like an on-chain pool has its own benefits, and you can see that in like the distribution of order flow for LI.FI. And I think like there's also this another design choice now with like mint and burn bridges of like messaging protocols. That's like an underrated or like under the radar kind of design. But I feel like for expansion to new chains, that'll be pretty important for something like a Stargate or even for a D bridge. And every messaging protocol that has a bridge built on top has this feature.
Okay, interesting. I'll continue with you, Arjun, because I've had this question. I really wanted to ask people in the know, and I think you're one of them. Is what do you think about assets, the fungibility of assets across different chains, like a USDC on say 2 layer 2s, or a USDC on any of the ETH ecosystem chains versus on Solana? And are they fungible? Should we be treating them as fungible? Should we be careful about treating them as fungible, or should we not?
I mean, so like it depends on who is deploying these assets, right? Like if it's Circle, sure, they are fungible. But then if it's, let's say, deployed on a token standard contract of a messaging protocol, maybe they're not fungible, right? I think the layman definition of fungibility should be if I'm willing to like sell you an asset, are you willing to buy it, right? Like if I sell you USDC on a layer 3, you being on Solana, will you be willing to buy it? Like if the answer is yes, then maybe they're like closer to being fungible, but in general, nobody is willing to do that, right? Like maybe you'll do it across L2s, maybe you'll do it on Solana and Ethereum, but then with all of these new chains coming up, it really matters like who is deploying these assets. So if Circle is doing it, sure, they are fungible, but then like if it's a bridge contract, if it's like some other technology, then or like some other issuer, then we really have to question like they're not really fungible.
Isn't chain abstraction the solution?
Yeah.
Sorry, isn't chain abstraction the solution to additional fungibility here? Because if somebody offers me, I don't know, even if Circle issued like USDC on some obscure L2, I will still want a discount because I'm just thinking about the headache of bridging that or figuring out how to bridge that back to a chain I actually use. So by definition, then it's not fungible, right? Because I'm not willing to accept $100 as $100 almost, right? I want like $105 for the 5 minutes to figure out like what this would be. But as soon as chain abstraction actually becomes a thing we see in the wild, then it doesn't matter where it lives because it's still spendable, depending on the CA solution, right? Is that accurate?
I think that's one of the complexities of like how do you design the UI in chain abstraction, because who defines what is acceptable and what is not, right? So you being the application developer, you could have your own preferences of saying that, okay, this chain is acceptable, this is not. So that for me is like a complexity of how an app developer designs a chain abstracted experience. And then as a user, you kind of buy into the app developer's definition, which cannot be standardized in many ways. So it's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, I have this question just because of what you said, Arjun, and I'm curious to understand what all three of you think. Does it make sense for an app developer to say, screw it, I'm not waiting for standards. I'm going to be extremely normative, and this is what my app is going to say, where ETH and wrapped ETH are going to be fungible, essentially. And so how this kind of gets rationalized is that there is some sophisticated actor who's basically going to supply this liquidity, and like Jasper said, is going to price this difference in, and is going to say, hey, sure, send me ETH, and I'm going to send you WETH, and you should be okay with it as long as that's what you want. What do you guys think of like people in general saying, like screw it, let's just go forge ahead and say this is what it is. Someone's going to put a price on it. User is going to decide whether they like that price or not. Finished.
It's a really good question, and I think it kind of opens up a lot of potential vulnerabilities. I noticed this very early within the Intents ecosystem. If you have maybe two solvers within an Intents market, those two solvers could collude to some degree by then defining their own artificial price. And the assumption is if a user goes to an interface, the information they're being presented dictates whether they would execute that or not, right? You can, in theory, trick the user into executing this. Most users, if they go to Uniswap or they go to CowSwap, whatever it may be, or LI.FI, they're not really going to triple check the market prices at that point in time. So it opens up a big question. And I think maybe SEDA can kind of solve this issue, right? Having many different people providing prices to the market, and then many different intent networks and chain abstraction protocols leveraging this more decentralized network itself.
Yeah, there's some sort of like Oracle-powered slippage, sort of like minimization thing that could be built here. So they could at least don't get screwed over more than a few percent. That's interesting. I like that.
I think like there's a limit to what's acceptable to the users and what's not, right? Like I think, especially in bridging, we see this come up very often that a user is trying to bridge USDC, but then the bridge ran out of liquidity, so they got some like wrapped USDC version of the bridge, and then they're in our like customer support channels just complaining about it, and it's very hard to explain that okay, the bridge ran out of liquidity, that's why you got this wrap token, which is supposed to be the same, but it's not the same. So like the user will not accept it, right? So you cannot define, you can define, but the user doesn't have to accept it. So I feel like even if an app developer kind of takes some of these asymmetrical bets, there are some industry standards in terms of like what's acceptable and what's not. Like a wrapped asset, you can make some sort of like give some sort of leeway to ETH and wrapped ETH. But then if you take the example of USDC and wrapped USDC of a bridge provider, then there's like a night and day difference. So that's not acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, very hard self-shell here, but I mean, a network like the Enso Intent Engine can solve this issue, right? The more collaboration, the more network participants you have, the less risk of this. If you have a aggregator or you have an interface only using 2 or 3 different providers for that particular route or that particular interaction, one day or another, your users are going to get wrecked. And we know this has already happened to particular people. So the more network participants you can kind of bring to an environment such as Enso, of people adding these interactions, people then also solving these particular routes, then you have less risk. Why does that happen? If you've only got 2, maybe one person doesn't respond and one person knows that other person's not going to respond, maybe they've DOSed them at that particular point in time, then you're only getting a really bad route for that user. With Enso, let's say you've got 50 different graphers, your assumption is you're going to need to DOS the whole network itself, right? You're going to need to take down the whole blockchain itself. Maybe somehow you find the individual graphers' IPs, you then DOS maybe, let's say 10%, but you still got 90%. To then DOS 50 of them all at the same time is really, really challenging. So again, geo redundancy, the amount of network participants is really, really important in these scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, the more solvers, the better it is, right? So like, I'm definitely a proponent for having as many routes as possible and then just picking the best one.
Got it. No, great. Conor, coming back to you. So how do you kind of imagine things playing out for you guys at Enso in terms of like both the supply side, whether it's your graphers, validators, whoever they may be, and this bunch of applications. So is there like a specific niche that you think that you guys want to target in terms of like the developers, and at what is your ideal state when it comes to all of these people who end up becoming service providers on your network?
Yeah, I mean, Enso started off social trading, then DeFi super app into DeFi aggregator. And we did specialize at the beginning more into like DeFi routes. So lending, borrowing, swapping, LPs and vaults. And we realized that our users didn't just want DeFi. They kind of wanted more different use cases. So any smart contracts, NFTs, any tokens, that kind of opens up the whole variety as a toolkit for developers to build products very, very quickly. what we've seen from the current customers using the Enso infrastructure is more native Web3 developers as of today, because, you know, there's a certain amount of developers in this community. It's good to kind of prove your use case first and then kind of expand. Over time, we see the developers starting to build on Enso will be not Web3 native developers. They will be purely Web2. Web2 that want to explore the Web3, but learning about the Web3 and that very steep learning curve will not be necessary using the Enso tooling going forth. You know, I remember learning Ethereum back in 2016. I know the times have changed a lot since then, but it's hard. You know, if you want to get proficient in Solidity smart contract development, you're looking 6-8 months. But inherently, you don't really need to. You just need to know what you want to interact with, and you can simply express this to the Enso intent engine. Now, where this kind of expands to in regards to network participants, so I think we've only really scratched the surface of what use cases are possible as of today. Like, we need to have all awareness of all smart contracts on all blockchain frameworks. Once we get there, then I know like we are enabling really any applications to be built on top of blockchain using Enso. What people could create is very abstract. Maybe it's a simple, maybe it's a DeFi protocol, maybe it's a new DeFi primitive, maybe it's an aggregator, maybe it's a cross-chain aggregator, maybe it's even, if you do not have a certain amount of walking steps in a day, then trigger an automation to then sell a particular portion of your ETH. You know, these very verbose, arbitrary use cases that people haven't really thought of, that weren't able to ship within a day or half a day. And now with Enso, they can do this.
Got it. Can you just list down a couple of these sort of like very clear-cut use cases where Enso is a straight fit?
Yes, so right now, you know, LI.FI, if you go to LI.FI, you want to do cross-chain DeFi deposits, cross-chain swapping. Enso is one of the providers underneath. For DeFi, we're the only provider. So let's say, for example, you're wanting to enter from ETH into Arbitrum on a Yearn vault, then we will be providing those routes underneath. Another use case is IPOR. IPOR, to be able to interact with the protocol, you're needing to do over 12, 13 different transactions. What they've done is they've used the Enso infrastructure for entering with one token into two, taking that to go into an LP, delegate, stake that LP, take that LP, move it over to another farm, boost up APY, and then rotate it back. So all of this is within one transaction. We also have two DeFi automation tools built on top of Enso. So you can drag and drop no-code visual creation tool to kind of say, if this happens, then that happens, right? So it's these, it's similar to, what's the name called? There's a Web2 application you can, Zapier, you can drag and drop and so forth. This is already built on top of Enso. We have wallets that are offering kind of lending and borrowing natively inside using Enso. Then we have DEX aggregators built on top of Enso. Then, yeah, the list goes on. We have the largest Telegram bot who's got 1.2 million users, who's building on top of Enso as well. So the use cases so far, primarily based on DeFi, but again, this network kind of expands it into more different types of use cases, purely based upon not only just our conviction, but also our users' requests. We found very quickly that we only build products based upon what our users ask for. So we know we're going to get adoption from day one, right? This is how we kind of find product market fit. So again, maybe there's a new use case that we don't see just yet, and somebody requests this. Maybe we can add this, or what's beautiful about the Enso network, anybody can come along and add this instead of us. So there's no bottleneck.
Got it. Understood. Well, that sounds really fantastic. I think you could easily see like a future where there is this one wallet super app or whatever that basically plugs into Enso APIs and is now doing all of these different things.
Yeah, I mean, it's already happening, right? But I want to see something different, man. Like it's too old. It's too old fashioned. It's like, how many wallets do we have? How many, I don't know, swap aggregators. It's all the same shit, right? We're not going to progress as an industry if we're all building the same stuff over and over and over again and artificially launching a token on top to then bring more attention and more traction to the product. That's not how we should be building products. We should be building products in a way that you've got an idea and you can ship it over a weekend and see if people like it, right? That's kind of the Web 2 methodology, and that's what should be happening in Web 3. We think we're going fast. But actually, the way we built the tech and how people can integrate it and use it is really, really challenging. And that's where we want to get to with Enso. There's not these basic use cases inside of Web3, but the use cases that we don't even see just yet because our minds have already been boxed, right? Wallets, aggregators, cross-chain, and so forth. This is basic. We need to take it up like 5-10 levels, and then we could potentially get mass adoption of Web3.
I think like I definitely agree with that like sentiment, but the problem is we've been hearing that for the last 2 years, right? Like when all the interop protocols also launched, they were like,
and do you know why? Do you know why that happens? Because there's not a tool that enables products to be built easily and fast. That's exactly why.
I mean, but like the thing is, I'm not even sharing my own protocol, right? Like I'm just saying, like interop protocols, they were all like, okay, you can now build omni-chain apps that kind of span any chain. You can only worry about the use case, but then who's actually building these apps? It's very easy for us to say that, okay, we want to see something new, but then it's actually hard to like think outside the box and build these things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
it's hard to think out the box because you need to spend 6 months integrating every single smart contract on every single blockchain. Exactly. That's exactly the problem because people aren't able to build applications very quickly. That's spot on. That's the whole the problem.
I fully agree. I actually think that, but this actually, it's funny because every conference you go to, you always get it's time to build consumer apps. It's time to build consumer apps. Like I've been hearing that for the last like 5 years, right? But I think that actually, and they're like, everybody's like, stop building infrastructure now, start building consumer apps. But we actually did really need like 1 or 2 more evolutions in infra to be able to actually scale to so many users. And I think this is the first time I'm actually becoming really, really optimistic that the tooling is there for these next generation of applications, right? With especially once like the chain abstraction sort of like class of the day matures a little bit further, and we get to see the first like use cases in the wild. I think then we're ready, right? You'll have Enso to make sure your transactions land where they need to land. You'll have SEDA to get any data you want. You essentially now have HTTP for your smart contract, and you have LI.FI as an app plugging into that, right? Like I think we're so close. We're so close. I'm super optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope that works out. Maybe we come back in a couple of months' time, back to the same place, and hopefully it won't be 4 infra guys talking about how crappy the products are in the space. Great.
I mean, to kind of add on to this one, right? Like we come from building 2 B2C products, okay? So we didn't start Enso on this magical concept of what Enso is as of today, right? We didn't say people have this problem, right? We had this problem ourselves. So we started off with social trading. We integrated 15 DeFi protocols. We spent over $500,000 in audits. We shipped it, barely any users, right? We had to rebuild the whole infrastructure to enable to integrate any DeFi protocol within 30 minutes, right? Then launched the DeFi super app. Didn't really have any users. Other people said to us, hey, we had the same problem as you. So then we created infrastructure to enable other people to build these applications. So just to be clear, I think a lot of infrastructure providers do not actually come from this problem. They were artificially creating problems that they think are problems, but we had this problem, and that's why we created this product to solve our problem. And then other people said, we have the same problem as you, and we're like, oh, perfect, hey, you can use it. So I think there's the narrative of more infra than apps and so forth, and what came from ECC. I think we should be very, very cautious in kind of who's propelling this information, right? It's like if they're purely infra and they've not really built customer products, which I'm sure all of us in this call have, then the opinion maybe not be as valuable, right? Because they're maybe artificially creating a problem just to then get product market fit to their infrastructure.
Yeah. Just for reference, we were building a DeFi app store in 2017, 2018. Way too early, like many issues. OpenSea had like 20 monthly active users at the time or something, and we're like proudly displaying that. So, and then we started building prediction markets as well. So, running into the Oracle problem every day until we're like, we have to build it ourselves, right? So, I fully echo your sentiment there, Conor.
Yeah, no, cool. I think you guys are absolutely right, and I think intuitively we can all see how and Enso or just chain abstraction in general kind of helps developers focus on what their core value proposition is, focus on what business logic, where to build, and not base it on like the strategy of trying to figure out, where are the users, where's the liquidity, and all of that sort of stuff. Intuitively, it feels correct, and hopefully, we get to that place where people actually sit down and are using Enso, are using SEDA, are using LI.FI, and all of these sorts of like infrastructure to actually deliver high quality products, and that's the goal. Hopefully, the mass adoption doesn't remain a meme. Hopefully, we can get past that. Great. Jasper, I think we're coming to the close, so I'll start sort of rounding up. Jasper, it'd be great if you could tell us, what are like the next set of things that people can immediately expect from SEDA? Basically, I'm talking weeks and a couple of months, not like much further beyond that.
Yeah, definitely. So in the next few weeks, we'll be building, announcing, and launching the first testnet integrations of the first people or protocols using SEDA. So we're really excited about that. In the beginning, it's very hands-on, writing docs, making sure that in the future we don't have to be involved at all anymore. But for now, we're really, really hands-on with our launch partners, and then looking for mainnet somewhere early Q4 this year. So very exciting, very busy.
Fantastic, great, thanks. Arjun, what can we hope to hear from you guys at LI.FI Jumper?
Yeah, I mean, like Conor said, it's the best to just listen to your customers and build accordingly, and that's the approach we've always taken, right? So like a year ago it was Solana, and now we're seeing a lot of demand for like native Bitcoin swaps and Bitcoin L2s as well. So we have recently announced like the first steps of integration with Thorchain for native Bitcoin, and slowly we'll release that on our SDK widget and then on Jumper so that it's available for users. But then in general, I feel like because our one of our main customer bases is wallets, and a lot of users or like their users hold native Bitcoin, so that's going to be a big unlock for everyone. And hopefully on the Jumper side as well, people really enjoy it. Thorchain definitely has a great community, so I feel like that'll be interesting.
Fantastic. Bitcoin support coming soon. Great. Conor, we already spoke about public sale. Outside of that, what can people hope to expect in the coming weeks, couple of months?
The CoinList launch, not a public sale, just to be clear. It's an auction, right? So no, it's all good. So anyone can decide, anyone can define their own price, right? I think it's a really beautiful mechanism that we do not dictate what we think our value is. Other people can dictate this. It's similar to kind of the ethos of users also tell us what they want, and then we build this and so forth. Apart from this, the Enso network, we're starting to bring some early contributors into this where people can start contributing to this open system. And just to clarify, this is a full layer 1 blockchain itself, built on top of the Cosmos SDK as a Tendermint-based chain. This allows us to have all of the information within one place. So really looking forward to this. And again, if people are wanting to build applications that interact with blockchain very easily, you can just reach out to us. You can reach out to me personally on Telegram, Conor_Enso. Happy to get you up and running. We have some great applications that are launching in hopefully the next 2 weeks. We didn't even know about them, and they've been building for a couple of weeks, and it's awesome products and that have never been built in this whole ecosystem before. So really, really looking forward to be supporting them as well.
Great, fantastic. Okay, so we're almost at the end. One last question, all three of you. What is your hottest / spiciest take in the context of chain abstraction? If you don't have one in the context of chain abstraction, what's a general like hot take that will get you in trouble with your HR?
I'm quite spicy. I'm happy to go first. Product beats paper. That's like a very, very fundamental concept. If you're building in this ecosystem, ship products. Do not ship white papers. If you are part of the problem, and you're creating this problem of this ecosystem larger. So spicy, but not really, because everyone can identify with it. But again, it kind of maybe some projects can identify with this, some can't. But really, just start shipping products. it'll help all of us grow forward as an ecosystem together.
I mean, I agree. We don't even have a, so that's definitely great.
Yeah, no, I saw your whole post on this on Twitter the other day. It really did appeal to a very like carnal side of every one of us that on the team. So very nice. No, thanks for saying it. Needed to be said. Jasper, Arjun, either of you.
Arjun, you have one ready?
I mean, so like I see this chain abstraction cake and how everyone's celebrating the collaboration, but I feel like this is just the early days of a narrative, right? Like everyone needs everyone to kind of spread awareness. So sure, there is collaboration, but maybe 1 year down the line, people will be more competitive when they start losing deals to each other. So I feel like it's definitely needed right now, but at the end of the day, it is business, right?
Yeah,
so you're going to see. Well, go ahead, Jasper.
No. I was going to say something similar. That is definitely true. I think one of the things that people are doing within Cake, which I think is pretty smart, but also I wonder how sustainable it's like they basically make everything like completely configurable, right? So you can pick whatever sort of like other parts of the Cake framework, or like applications may pick which other parts of the Cake framework they integrate in order to build their apps. And I think that is how winners will be decided, right? So people don't have to make their own other participants within a network. They essentially just get to build it modular or configurable or like however people want to call it. But that's cool. I just think chain abstraction term is like super broad, right? Like I think we should start narrowing down more like what people do exactly, right? Because I see people saying they build for chain abstraction, and then it turns out that they build insurance for solvers. I'm like, okay, that would have been a lot more helpful to call it that, because chain abstraction can be a lot now. So I think starting to create a fire under some of the sub narratives, I think is something that is bound to happen, and maybe that'll happen naturally, as Arjun said, over the next year when people are sort of like trying to hype up their own products a bit more and show collaboration a little bit less.
No, I think I fully agree. I personally see two types of people, three actually. People who are actually doing like genuine good within like the chain abstraction space, like the prime movers. Then you have people who are in for the ride because it's this new hot meta in the space, and then you have people who like essentially like they confuse the whole like general idea and are like talk about like, for example, your insurance guys, right? So I think it's in general you will find that a lot of people will fall by the wayside over time, and hopefully everyone is like Arjun predicts will be at their throats competing really hard. Okay, on that note, guys, thank you so much for being here today and helping shed some light on what the future holds. Fantastic talking to all three of you, and hopefully we can do a part 2 of this very soon, where we can get updates from each of you guys, and of course see if there are really good quality apps being built with all of this chain abstraction hoopla. Fantastic. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye-bye.
Thank you for
all the best on the
us.
token launch, Conor.